and welcome back to my Zelda 2 Let's Play. Last part, we finished the first palace and got the candle, so let's get some use out of that item. So, you may have briefly caught that when you complete a palace, it turns to rubble. But one good thing is that you don't have to worry about it turning to rubble if you miss the item. No, instead what happens is, you can go back into the palace anytime to collect the item, which is very useful. So with the candle, we can now enter dark caves and have everything lit up, so we can see what that enemy was that was attacking us before in this cave. And every other cave in the world also lights up, so you don't have to worry about having to activate the candle or anything to use it. Some keen-eye viewers of part 1 may have noticed I didn't go south of Zelda's palace. Well, that's because the caves there will be dark until you get the candle. So I wanted to wait until I got the candle before I headed down this way. You definitely want to explore these caves though, because there's a really useful item that you can get there that we definitely don't want to pass up on. And here we have a little fairy in the overworld, so when you touch it, you get a full heal. Since you already had full health though, it doesn't do anything. Now, the item that we're going to be getting here is a magic container, and the magic container is extremely useful because it increases the bar of your magic meter. So as you can see, the meter gets bigger. Now you may be asking about why is this useful if we can just level up our magic? Well, level up magic just allows you to use your spell for less cost on your magic meter. So regardless of how long your magic meter is, if you have a low magic level, your spells will use up most of that meter. But if you have a high magic level and a high magic meter, then you can use more spells and they won't cost as much. So basically the meter is to increase your use of spells, and the magic level is to decrease the cost for the spells. Now, these are new enemies here, the Octoroks, which are a Zelda staple in the series. They're not too tough because you can block the rocks that they shoot, but you have to watch out for if you're near a pit as they can knock you back. So we're grabbing a little trophy here, and you want to come to this cave and grab the trophy because this is going to be important for the next town that we're about to visit, as you need this trophy to give to someone in order to get the next magic spell. So from now on, whenever you go to a town, there'll be a quest which you have to do in order to get the magic spells. I'm doing this one now just so that I don't have to talk to the person to figure out what I need to do to get the spell, because I already know that I need a trophy. But if you didn't know that, you can just come to the town, get your heal ups, talk to the special woman who will tell you what they need, and you'll be able to explore for it. So this is the town of Ruto, which is a fish princess in Ocarina of Time. That also is the fiancé of Link in that game. Yeah, Zelda's a bit weird sometimes. Anyway, this old man here gives us the jump spell. Now the jump spell is required in order to complete the game, and you need the jump spell for the next area we're about to visit. And the reason is, this spell makes it so that you jump higher, and as we're going to see in a bit, there are some ledges and some platforms that you can't reach without the jump spell. So you absolutely need it. Later in the game we'll get something that's just as useful, but the jump spell can also be used for combat as well. So it's still useful even when we get a spell later in the game that'll allow us to do something similar. Now this cave is a bit tricky compared to some of the things we've done so far in the game, and I always have a lot of trouble in this cave compared to the early point in the game. And the reason is these red boomerang guys. So these enemies were annoying earlier when they were the orange kind, but the red ones are harder because they do a bit more damage and they take more hits to kill, which is a really annoying thing about them. And the other thing that makes it harder is that this part of the world, this cave, has very low ceilings, so trying to block the boomerangs is a lot harder when you don't have much room to dodge and attack them. Unfortunately, I got another game over. Now I promised that I'll be cutting these out after the next part onwards, but I wanted to just show early game what it's like when you get a game over and how you can make the most of travelling around. So the little jets, basically I wanted to show the journey that you have to take in order to get back to where you were at this point in the game. But I'll be cutting these out next part onward because there's a lot of backtracking that we're going to be doing if we die at this point in the game. And the things that we need to do are very difficult coming up. So while on the topic of game overs, I will just say that while I really love this game and I think it's such an underrated classic, I will admit having to travel back through the world is the worst part of this game, and it is the one flaw that I will absolutely agree with everyone on that is super unnecessary. Like, the game's punishing enough as it is, but the fact you have to travel back is just tedious. It's not hard travelling back, it's just tedious. And it really drags out the later half of the game when you keep dying at a really tough part and you have to walk all the way back, which means you'll get into a lot of fights on the way back, which means that by the time you get there you might not have all your lives or you might not have full magic and full health. So it makes this game a lot harder than it would have been without that feature. But I will say, despite that problem, I still find a lot of enjoyment in this game, and I think viewing this game as a really flawed experience because of the backtracking isn't really fair. I mean, yeah, I understand it does make the game annoying, but I don't think it ruins the entire game because you get items to help you travel along the world a bit quicker. There's plenty of ways to exploit the overworld so you don't have to keep fighting enemies, and you can get to areas fairly safely as well, and there's towns along the way to heal. So there's a lot of ways to negate some of those problems. So anyway, here we've got a new version of the keys. We've got the demon keys, which when it lands on the ground it becomes a demon. It shoots fire as well, which you should know you cannot block with your shield, so you want to be very careful with this. Now why did I cast the jump spell? Well, because we need to use it to get over this tall ledge here. And because there was a magic jar dropped, I was able to get a little bit of the magic I used back, which is very useful. Now as we've just left that cave here, you want to go to the right, because there's a fairy that can give you a full top up, which is extremely useful, especially because of how hard that cave can be with the boomerang enemies. So welcome to the swamp area. It's got a bit of different terrain where different forms of enemies will appear, and the tall grass does make you move a bit slower, so you're more likely to encounter some of the enemies here. One of the annoying enemies in this part is the crow enemies, which if they hit you, they can take some experience points away, which is very annoying, so you want to really watch out for them. Now, one huge tip I will give here is follow this video, specifically now, as a guide for where to go first in this part of the world. You absolutely want to do this now and not later, as it will save a lot of time when you're backtracking or if you inevitably die at this point in the game and have to walk back over here to the next town that we'll be going to. So in this forest there are obviously battle scenes with monsters, but there's also some specific battle scenes that you can't avoid, and you will encounter no matter what when you walk into certain parts of the forest. But, as you'll see in a moment, in one of these spots in the forest, one of these unidentifiable spots in the forest, is a required spot where we will see someone is living here in the forest. So this hut is super important and you need to come here to finish the game.
Bagu is my name, so I know to Riverman.
Not the Riverman. Show this note to Riverman. Smeek's like a caveman, doesn't he? Or maybe like they made an error or something. Well, actually, in a way they did. You see, I passed it up earlier, but in the town of Ruta, there's a man called Error who says, "I am Error." And this guy's called Bagu. Bagu is Japanese for bug. So when you put the names together, you get Error and Bug. So it's a cute little joke that not everyone gets the first time playing. So there you go. But as we try to make it to the next town, Link tragically dies. So that's it. That's Zelda 2. Join me next time for a different Let's Play. Take care, I guess.